Do you think trying to look for silver lining in all this? Do you think, as a result of the Trump visit to China, there will be at least a short period of stability in the Sino-American relationship?
I think the Chinese have calibrated this to be a 2.5 year solution. What happens in 2.5 years? So, I mean, they are looking long term. But as I said, I was very, very hopeful. This is the first time that anyone I've seen has really kind of corralled Donald and made him understand, you'd like to be transactional. We're going to be transactional. You do A, we'll do B. And he knows what he has to do. He can only, the distraction with China would be kind of like with Iran. It would not work out well. He doesn't have these strategic minerals. He rounded up 30 CEOs, including Jensen Huang, to run over to China with him to ask what they could get out of the deal. These were big entities, and a third of them were billionaires, and they were all over here, with their begging cup, and they were trying to see what he could shake loose for them. It didn't really amount to much. He had heard that when MERS came, there was a promise that we could, the Chinese would buy up to 250 Airbus jets. So his initial offer to the Chinese is, you give me 500 Boeing jets, because that way I can claim that I'm twice as good as Mertz, that I'm the best deal maker in the world, and things like that. The Chinese are kind of looking at him and says, well, why would we buy 500 jets from you? It's not like the 747, whatever it was, 11 Max, the one kept falling out of the air. I think people still kind of remember that. And there are issues there, but it's all, I don't know, it's all nonsense. You could say 1,000 jets. Delivery time would be sometime in the next millennium. It's just there's already a waiting list for new jets. It might be down slightly because of the impact, but once those orders are put in, they're there. Then you have to wait till they come out of the assembly line and you take delivery. You can then resell them, but Boeing isn't going to give you your money back if you cancel your place in line in terms of getting one. So it's creating actually more openings for China's domestic aircraft maker, AVIC. They are powering ahead. I always love it because Airbus is a political entity. They have to share the work. So you have some work done in France, and then they ship this huge fuselage over to Germany, and then they do some work there, and then go somewhere else. You can imagine you have to have specialized ships, specialized trucks, all of these things in order to get it. It's a big production. In China, they'll start at one end of the factory, and 16 football fields later, you'll emerge, every hour. Now, right now, they're not producing in mass numbers. They're taking a very, very careful approach, which is very endemic of China. They're only producing so many a year. It's just over double digits, and what they're doing is they're making sure that their entry in the market is not marred by problems. With the planes themselves, which would, in essence, kill some of the things. So they're taking a very slow and deliberate approach. Their planning has been the key to China's success. Look at EVs. 10 years ago, they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to get into EVs. This is the future. We need to battle the smog that's in cities and things like this. We've got a lot of people." So what did they do? They did it. And then people came back, the auto companies came back after COVID and said, "Oh my God, we invented a new industry and we can't compete." And we're losing share in one of our biggest markets. Where's our revenue plan? Where's our profitability? Where's our growth? So they've been really kind of stymied by that. But if they just watched, all right, and seen what the Chinese government is doing, they would have been ready. And I find this astounding. China, if you know how to read it, is very, very clear. It is not opaque at all. The details can be opaque for obvious reasons. You don't want people gaming the system. But in terms of what they intend to do, it's very clear. And, unfortunately, I talked to a lot of people who are in the consulting business. And spend a few weeks, a year here, or something like that, or they spend some time, a significant amount of time, many years before. And I'm amazed. Their reading of China is, I don't know. I'm looking at them going, well, you understand how things work here, right? Yeah, but why are you coming out with this stuff? It sounds like you're just echoing talk points from the places that you come from, whether it's Brussels or the United States or Washington. So I don't know what happens, but it's a situation where when people are out of China, they lose track of the reality. I think part of that is that China changes so quickly. Something Donald Trump noticed. He's a real estate guy. So when he came in from that airport and he's looking around going, oh, boy, wait a second. This isn't the place I was at 9 years ago. You go back to New York, maybe you see one or two buildings or something like that. But here he came, there's whole new infrastructure, they have parks, urban development, people on the street. No, this isn't the economy that's failing. It's what was my point? I think, what was I talking about?
You were talking about China's airline industry. They're gonna, yeah.
Airline industry and the fact that they plan. This is going. But the advisors that I talk to, I sit on some public boards. They really get out of touch very, very, very quickly. And I said this to a friend who was here. He was very involved, a very astute guy, but he's now in Washington. And I said, every day in Washington, is a day that you lose relevance. I said, it's, you have your family, that's fine, but you have to be here because things are changing so quickly and you have to talk to people and read between the lines not between the lines, you have to understand the direction. And it's not like they're not trying to tell you. Unfortunately, they sometimes use official speak and things like that. But understanding China is really about doing a lot of research, reading, talking to the right people and things like that. So, and that's not, there's communication gap. It's getting a little bit better. China has, done this visa-free program for so many places, and it's had huge rings. I think personally that if China were to do visa-free from the United States, yes, they get a bunch of spies who are coming over here trying to look around, but the vast majority of Americans who come over would be astounded. I just had an old friend. I hadn't seen him in 22 years. And he came in Beijing and he stayed for a week. And I said, what's your thought? And this guy was a very high-powered guy. He was involved in a sports franchise, a major one, and also another business where he was running a very, very, very influential community fund. And he just said, Einar, it's just not the place that I read about. This is a place where I'm safe at 4 a.m. in the morning. Right? So my wife and I took a walk along the river, and he said, "This is incredible. We can't measure up." And he said, "I'm rethinking so many things." But he's been taking tours every year for just 2 or 3 months with his wife, and they go to other countries and they look at it. And he's been through South America, he's done parts of Africa, he's now entering Asia, he's done the stands, everything like this. And he's starting to say, well, things aren't the way we think they are. And it's time we start understanding them in real terms. And I think this is one of the major issues. So I think if there's going to be something that could really change things, I think it is saying Americans, you don't need a visa to come here for whatever 14 days a month or something like that. It certainly helps tourism. So there are immediate gratifications. The embassies get to exchange more. But I mean, changing that perception is so necessary because at the top it's become balkanized. You have the neocons and the neolibs now, basically talking from the same, um, you know, the same papers. They're talking about, it has to defend Israel, and we have to, export freedom and all this type of stuff. And they're insulated. They're ideological. They accuse other people of being ideological, but they're more ideological than anybody else at this point. How else can you explain all the wars, all the horrors that we inflict on others? How we stand by while Gaza gets pummeled? There's no way. You have to leave some of your humanity behind when you embrace something that says, I can kill people in order to do good. This is the mantra that the Japanese use, Germans, anybody, any empire in the past. And we try to convince people that the people they were fighting were less than human things. But what I never understand, Carl, is when you do that, let's say you're victorious. It doesn't matter if you're victorious or you're defeated. You go back, those people go back home, and the cost to society is over multiple generations. You go back to the wife, you think things are going to be just hunky-dory. Him waking up, the atrocities in his dreams. How's he going to be with his children, with the rest of society? I knew people who went to World War II, Korea and Vietnam. The scars continue. They thought they were young. They were trying to protect themselves. They fought for the guy next to them. But when they saw the carnage, not only that they inflicted, but also inflicted upon them, seeing your best friend have his, half his face blown off. That's something you forget. So those wounds carry on. And then eventually, if you're the victim, you believe that power is the only true source of security. And you're more likely to start a war because you believe that, well, unless I do it, somebody will do it to me. Okay. And we see that with Israel. What happened with the Holocaust. And now they're repeating it. Then you see it with situations where you have victors like the United States. We've not prevailed, but we've walked away and declared victory on different instances. But we have this deep, really dark part where we always assume that any other country who had the power we had would do exactly what we did. And that fear is unspoken in most cases. You can hear it in the attitudes of people that you talk, especially neocons. Since it's all about power, don't be a sissy, Einar. You think making the world is a better place. It isn't. It's a terrible place. And the only thing that rules is if we have the power. Because if we don't have the power, it'll be used against us. And this kind of attitude, this is the enemy. And it's not that these are bad people or they beat their dogs or something like that. It's just they really believe in the cynicalness. I mean, Dick Cheney, this was exactly what he believed about the world. Right? It's a horrible place, and you just have to be more horrible than anybody else to survive it. In a nutshell. I'm hoping civilizationally they realize, if you look at China, they say, look, we've seen what horrible doesn't solve anything. It just makes sure that the conflict goes on to the next generation or 2 generations down the line. So that's not the way to go. So they say, okay, maybe there's a way that we can reach consensus, win-win. You prosper, I prosper, we don't need to fight. Not that that's always the case. You have situations where there's plenty of prospering, but then people get greedy and they say, well, why you should, I want what you have. And that leads to trouble. So human nature to a large degree. But hopefully, I'm hoping that with AI, there is, it's like anything else. It's a dual-sided sword. But I'm hoping that it's to somehow remind us that the things that we've done in the past, the mistakes, they don't need to be repeated again. We could actually do something new, stop the cycle of violence and nonsense, because it just doesn't work. I mean, if you say it works, show me where it worked. They say, oh, well, the empires, they took over lands. but in turn they were taken over. So, how do you want to see the world? What kind of world do you want to live in? This is what I always ask people. I'm not trying to be Pollyannish and say, oh, dreams and lollipops. I'm just saying, how do you want your children to live? In fear? Thinking that if I'm not tougher and rougher and cheat this guy, I'll be cheated by them. That is exactly how criminals think. They're always assuming that they'll do it to me unless I do it to them first. And it's all fair because they're all thinking exactly like me. And this is true of pedophiles and these guys. It's just everything is justified because that's the reality of the world. I've never seen anything come out positive of any of that stuff. So I ask people, what kind of world do you want? What kind of world do you want for your children? It's a harder question right now, especially in the United States, because people are worried. They're up against the wall economically. They don't. You have 20% of Americans skipping meals, not because they want to get thin, because they want to make sure that the food goes to their kids, or that they can pay the car bill, the credit card bill that never seems to go down, the interest on it. This is the part where government can help. Government should be out there making sure that I'm getting a fair deal, not doing it for me, but simply saying, here are the opportunities, you have to go get them yourselves. But we're not going to let people cheat you institutionally. Why should credit card companies be charging 13 to 22%? You bought it on credit because you didn't have the cash, right? Or if you're rich, just for the points, right? But it's really a beggar thy neighbor approach. Government should be moving in and say, okay, obviously credit is needed, but credit has to be extended at reasonable terms. I mean, you have these people who are buying groceries now to pay later. So they don't have any money, they don't have any credit. They're buying groceries, and they're going to pay up to 30% more for the same groceries, simply because they have to eat today. And they're hoping that tomorrow will somehow work out, win the lottery. My boss gives me a pay raise, something. They don't know what's going to happen, and they're desperate. And this is the sad part. I mean, we're facing such difficult times. The solutions, as you said, what is the silver lining? Gee whiz, just be nice to each other. Stop investing in wars and munitions and things like that. Start investing in education, social welfare, the things that are going to make a better society. I mean, there's a proven, except for Cuba, of course, because we don't allow them to do anything. Those are the ones that actually achieve a great deal of happiness. There are places like Nepal where they're very happy, but that has more to do with spiritual connotations to it. It doesn't have to do with their economics, but in terms of economically advanced countries, education is a direct correlation to people's ability to be happy and enjoy life, understand it. So why not do more of that? We have the tools, AI. You don't need to have teachers in classrooms. You don't even need classrooms. People can literally learn online using an AI that goes at their speed. Once they've mastered it, they move on to the next thing. If they can do it quickly, great. If they have to do it slowly, fine. Whatever. There's no human element involved. All right. It's ultimate patience. And I think this would make a huge degree of difference to students. Obviously, they need to learn how to be social and do things together, but community projects. There's so many, that my point, Carl, is there's so many things we could be doing that don't cost a lot of money, but instead we're spending our money on things like wars, killing people, as if that's a solution. Sadly.